Well, hello, hello, hello. I am Pastor Rhonda, founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry and your host for Celebrate Life today. I welcome you to the show and I pray that you learn something today and you're encouraged by the testimony that you're going to hear from my friend Anika. Hey, Anika, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. I'm so excited to hear you share because I was truly blessed by the testimony as you gave it to me. And I said, this is truly a story that will bless other folks. So why don't you just go ahead and get started and tell us your story?
Well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Was, and I like to underscore the word was. In 2018, it started when I felt a lump on my left breast, and it was something that I hadn't felt before. And I don't know, instinctively, I just started to cry because it just seemed like I don't know what it was, but I just kind of knew, but I was just in denial. So I have had a history. My grandmother actually died of breast cancer, so it's been kind of in our subconscious growing up as girls. I have a sister as well, and so I decided, you know what? I was in Venezuela, and something told me to go check it. So I decided to check it. Now I've always been an adventurous. I would go to a country, just kind of immerse myself and understand the culture and become one almost. So that's what I did. I did my mammogram.
So you were in
Um,
this country all by yourself?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
I left my husband and my son. But I told him I'm an adventurer, so he was like, "Are you going? You sure you're going to Venezuela? Sure, because of what's happening economically and socially." But I said, "You know what? I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to go." So I went. I did my mammogram, and they said, you know what, you should get a biopsy. Of course, all of this is in Spanish. Spanish is not my first language, but I understand the language pretty well. So I spoke to my husband because he's still my best friend. He's always been and always will be my best friend. And he was like, you know, I don't think you have anything to worry about, but still go check it. So I said, okay, fine. I went and I had the biopsy. That in itself was pretty painful, but I did it, and then I made an appointment. Of course, all of this, I made an appointment with an oncologist in Venezuela. All of this happened. So she then read out the news to me, and she's like, "You have stage 1 cancer." I will never forget that. And that was in September. And I said, well, can I speak to my husband? So I called him from the doctor's office. She's talking to me in Spanish. I'm translating. And they said, it's stage 1. And he was in shock because a lot of people will know, those of us that have walked that cancer journey, that it's not just you, it's your entire family that's affected.
Right.
So I immediately said, well, take off. I want a mastectomy. Take it all off. Just take my breast. Take it. And they were telling me, whoa, calm down. It's just 14 millimeters. We can go ahead. We can have a lumpectomy, which of course is going in and just removing the cancer itself. And then you do your chemo and your radiation, and you'll be fine. And you don't need to take your breasts. You can save your breasts. So I was like, okay. So immediately, because I've done some research before, I'm like, well, okay, what if I do a mastectomy? If I do a double mastectomy, can I just do it one time, take it out? Then you can give me some nice size, double E's or F's or whatever, and I can go, I can go back home. And home is Trinidad, and I share home between Trinidad and Florida. So they were like, no, according to their medical rules, you're not allowed to touch your breast for 3 years after you've had a mastectomy. So it's not like doing a mastectomy across here in the States where you can do your mastectomy and do your plastic surgery at the same time. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do this lumpectomy. And so they said, no problem. But of course, in order for you to do it, you have to make sure that you're healthy. So I had to do a series of tests. I had to do an MRI. I remember not eating and drinking this kind of yucky tasting, almost metallic tasting liquid for them to do a full, I forgot the name of it, but they did a full x ray from head to foot to just check to see if there was any trace of cancer anywhere else in my
Got it.
body. And it so happened it was just centered on my breast. And what happened even before that is that I woke up a day, I was a size 24, and I'm like, I don't like how I look. I want to change who I am. So I started to lose weight. And if I had not lost the weight, I lost like about 30 pounds. If I didn't lose that weight, I would not have felt the lump that was there.
Wow.
So it's always important. I think the lesson for all of this, when you sit down, people could sit down and look at cancer as, a death sentence, or they can look at it as a renewal of life.
Amen.
And that's what I did. When I got the news, to me, I felt like it was the worst bit of news I can ever get. It was the worst day of my life. So instead of spiraling into self pity, what I did is I called friends. I called one particular friend who was a survivor of throat cancer. I called him, and I was in Venezuela, and I called him. I said, his name is Ryan. I was like, Ryan, I just got diagnosed. He's like, what kind of cancer? I said, breast. He said, oh, that's an easy one. That's a good one. And that immediately changed my mindset. I was like, oh, it's a good one to have. Okay, who says it's a good cancer to have? But he said it was a good cancer to have. And he's like, yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And then somehow something inside of me sparked. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be fine. I'm going to do this surgery. I'm going to do the lumpectomy. I'm going to make sure it's done. It's going to be fine. I told my husband not to worry. He was, of course, freaking out because flights aren't regular to Venezuela from Trinidad. It's twice a week. So he's like, when are you going to have this surgery? I said, I'm scheduling it on Thursday. I'm going to have this thing done. I'm going to be fine. He's like, well, I can only fly on Thursday evening. I'm like, well, if you want to come. He's like, I'm coming to get you. You're in a foreign country. It's Venezuela. I'm seeing the news, So he was like, no, I'm coming. It was almost like to extract me from Venezuela. He thought I was going to come back.
Mm.
So, so I'd done all my tests the morning of the surgery. I had to have it's almost like a silver marker go into my body. That was extremely painful because they had
Mm.
to ensure that the lump stayed where it was because it was moving all over.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't feel it because of the amount of weight that I had on my body. And then, of course, because it kept shifting and moving all over the place. So they had to put it in place. And of course, when you puncture it, of course, they're concerned about the cells spreading. So I had the surgery a few hours after. But one most significant thing is that oncologist, she's like, I'm a praying woman. All of this again is in Spanish. I pray and I am going to pray for you. We're going to do this. It's going to be fine. It's going to be well. I'm praying. I'm praying to my angels and my saints because Venezuela is a very pro-Catholic country. I know this because I have family from Venezuela as well. So they I said, you know what, we prayed together, and she's like, you're gonna be fine. I'm with you. So of course they scheduled me for the surgery. She drove me to the hospital. The oncologist took me to the hospital. And because I was there by myself
And
and
she knew that, huh?
sorry.
And she knew you were there by yourself?
Yes, she knew I was there by myself, and when she was giving me the diagnosis, she was holding my hand because it is a traumatic thing to hear. I don't think, you hearing, okay, you put on 10 pounds is not the same as you hearing you're diagnosed with stage one breast cancer. So, but it was stage one, and they wanted to do more tests. They asked me permission to be able to when they took the cancer cell, the tumor out, to be able to test it. So I told them, yes, test it. I need to know exactly what type of cancer I was dealing with, and how to move forward with my life. So the day of the surgery, I'm there by myself. Of course, I'm the type of person I make friends easily. So I've made friends with all the nurses. And I'm like, can you give me drugs? Can you drug me? Because I suffer from high blood pressure as well, hypertension. So, of course, I needed to be calm in order for them to do the surgery, else they could not operate on me. And I needed to have this removed from me immediately. That's how I felt. I felt like, you just want to get this out of you. And I'm sure how I, the kind of emotions that I was going through. And then, I'm telling myself I have to be strong. I have a son. I have to have a husband. I have to be okay for them because it's devastating for them. So And of course, I have to manage how my son was dealing with it. And because he and I were particularly close, we've always been. So I'm it's miraculously, and God really does work in mysterious ways. My blood pressure happened to be normal. It was a miracle. It was a miracle considering that I was so nervous and I was joking. And they were like, "Oh, you're a comedian." All of this in Spanish. I'm like, "Yes," and I'm making everyone laugh. And then
Was that before or after the happy gas?
they happy. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They gave me some. Oh yeah. And my oncologist came in, she held my hand and she said, "You know what? We're going to be okay. I'm praying for you." And I'm like, "I'm praying for me too." And yes, we're going to be okay. And then, of course, the nurses and doctors that I'd made friends with were all in the observation room waving. So I was waving at them, they were waving back. I mean, I felt like I was among friends, but I didn't know most of them before that day, which was, I mean, anyway, but you look at the positive. So I had people there, and they were there with me, and even the woman that was undressing me for my surgery to put on my robe, she was praying with me. I didn't know her, she didn't know me, but at the end of the day, there are good people in the world, and I think once you're a good person, you'll always kind of gravitate towards other people. That's how I feel. And I think that has proven itself. So when I came to, my throat was like really swollen and my face started to swell because what happened is when they went in, they realized it wasn't 14 millimeters, it was 34 millimeters of cancer.
Wow.
So it wasn't stage one, it was actually stage two cancer. And they had to keep testing to make sure that there were no cancer cells. So they were really thorough. So I was in for quite probably about 6 or 7 hours, which is a long time to be under. So they had to, I think, put something down my tube, uh, down my throat to ensure that I was breathing and so on. It was apparently quite something. And then I bled out because, when you're on hypertensive medicine, your blood's pretty thin. So all of that they had to deal with and ensuring that I was okay. But the good news is we always look at the positives in life, that they took out one of my lymph nodes that had tested negative, and they ensured that every part of the area had tested negative before they closed me up. They put a marker in, and they said that the cancer was so calcified. It was like a ball of calcium, and it was hidden under my dense breast, so they couldn't see the full extent. Even with, you do your ultrasounds, you think your mammogram, it didn't pick it up. It didn't pick up the extent of it. So sometimes you really never know what's going on in there until they get in. So that was the night. My husband, when I came to, my husband was at my bedside, and my son looked at me and he just collapsed on me and started crying. And
Oh,
that's how I knew that, he's what, he's 15 now. So he was, just 11, a little over 11. To have to go through that is that's rough. That's rough for a child, and an only child at that. Um, so then my face it was swollen and it became unrecognizable because I had some sort of allergic reaction. So then that was another piece of drama. Venezuela lost electricity, which is something that happens very common. So we lost electricity in the hotel, not in the hotel, sorry, in the hospital, but they had generators, and I'm just saying, I'm so grateful and so fortunate that they were able to operate for all those hours without electricity going.
no. Yeah.
By the way, when I did my mammogram, electricity went and the mammogram was stuck with my breast like that for about 2 hours. I couldn't get it out. Yeah,
No.
no, oh yeah. Yeah, Venezuela is really, really bad. I mean, that's just my personal experience. We lost when I was recovering in the hotel. We lost electricity for 8 hours nationwide,
Mm,
10 hours in other places, and the
mm.
hotel had no electricity. Imagine that. So that just goes to show you when you put
Was
it.
the weather hot or cold or?
Oh yeah, it's dry and very arid. That's what it's like. It's almost like some parts of Mexico, if you've been to Mexico, or some
Mhm.
parts of Texas, where you can almost see dust. Those dust tumblers happening. It's almost like that. It's like
Mm.
very, very dry. But then it's also, I don't want to get into the political aspect. I'm just sharing what my experience was. But it was pretty horrible to not have electricity for so long and so often. And then there's a food shortage when we were there, and then they discontinued the US dollar, so you couldn't use the US dollar when we were in Venezuela. It was crazy. So he's like, so I spoke with my oncologist, and I was like, okay, what are the next steps? And she's like, well, healthcare is free, and you can go on the list, and you can do your chemo and stuff in Venezuela. Heaton's my husband. He's like, nope,
We're out of here.
we're out of here. I feel like if I spend one more day in this country, something's going to happen because it was unsafe, and it still is unsafe. So we decided to get the next flight out, and I left the marker in and the stitches, and I kept in contact with her. And I went back to Trinidad, and then I booked to come up to the US to be able to do my treatment. Healthcare is also free in Trinidad, but the machines weren't calibrated, so that's a
Mm.
no-go as well. I mean, it's wonderful to get free healthcare, but it's a quality of healthcare as well. Not to knock Trinidad, it's just that they just had a thing with the cancer equipment, and I just didn't want to take that chance. So I came up to Florida. By that time, I'd gotten the results from Venezuela in terms of what the type of cancer was. I was very fortunate. It was a slow moving cancer, slow forming cancer. So I was very, very fortunate. So that also contributed to the fact that it didn't spread anywhere else. So you see, all of these things was a time for me to just kind of take stock of myself and be grateful and look at the fact that I still have a breast. It's not symmetrical, but it's still there. It's a cup size smaller, but it's still there. And because I jump from all over the place. Sorry, Pastor, but
It's okay.
just to
I'm following real well.
just to share with you, when they bandaged me up and they released me, they discharged me from the hospital. My breast was like the shape of an L. So I just thought, this is how it's going to be. I'm just gonna have to live with this shaped breast. And my husband kind of made light of it, and he's like, well, at least guess what? You have a natural seatbelt holder because it'll just stay in place. I was just like, yeah, that's true. And he's like, I still love you, whether you had breasts or you don't have breasts. I still think you're beautiful. I still want to be with you, so you don't ever have to worry about that. And I thought that was, that kind of support also helps. So I was like, okay, good, because naturally you feel like you're mourning a loss. You feel like you're losing a part of you when you go through this kind of treatment. You feel, even if it's just a lumpectomy, the fact is, here's it. I'm looking at my breast, and it's all disfigured. But when I went back to the oncologist and she removed the bandages after and removed the first set of stitches, then I realized, oh, okay, it's kind of normal. It's just smaller. So you live in, gratitude. And that's what this journey taught me. It taught me to live in gratitude. So, on to my next phase. So, I'm up in the States. I went to a hospital that shall not be named, but is a really popular hospital in Florida. And I just didn't feel the kind of health care that I thought should happen. Every time I met with my oncologist, it was like he just didn't remember me. He was
Wow.
reading my file. It felt like for the first time he was making comments like, I really need to go on vacation. I'm tired. And then he looked at me, he's like, well, you know what? It's too late to do chemo. You're already past the chemo stage. So go do radiation. I was billed for blood work that I never did. It was a whole, comedy of errors. And I was just not happy. And I miss my oncologist in Venezuela, who is so caring. I mean, it's chalk and cheese. It was really chalk and cheese. I felt like I was just going through a system that was making money. And I
Mm.
was just a number, and I was not a person. That's how I felt. So early in the morning, a voice came to me. I don't know if it was the Holy Spirit. I don't know. But the voice told me, you know what? Seek alternative treatment. Seek an alternative treatment for your cancer. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do some research. And I did. And I found a treatment center in Mexico. There I go again. I sat with Hayden, I looked at him, and I said, they're offering this thing called immunotherapy. It's something new, and I've been reading because our business is primarily research, and I've been doing a lot of research on it. There was a woman that was at stage 4, and the doctors told her go ahead and make peace with her maker, and she decided to do immunotherapy, and she's cancer free today. So I said I'm going to do that. And I've always been, as you realize, adventurous. So I made contact with the hospital. It's New Hope Medical in Mexico. I took a flight to Yuma from Florida and crossed the border, went to Mexico, did my treatment by myself. Did a yoga class in Mexico by myself. Made friends with the nurses. They're on my Facebook up to today. We still keep in contact. Um, and of course, naturally, it's not my first language. It's Spanish, and yeah, I still did it. And it was, I made friends. I made a friend. She's a very good friend of mine today. Her name is Stacy. She also was there with her other half who was doing cancer treatment. She is a cancer survivor as well, and she did it all through natural remedies. And she needed a place to stay. I was like, okay, well, you stay with me. And we became friends. Didn't know her before, but felt like, you knew her for a long time, and you have these connections with people. And then I like to make friends. So,
I
uh,
can't tell.
so, at least she was there because I also had stem cell work done. And people tell me, I'm almost 50. People tell me, oh, yeah, you look like you're in your 30s. And I'm like, yeah, it's stem cell. So, again, benefits of that, and then I just changed my lifestyle. I started looking at labels. I started realizing how much crap we eat and we consume and how bad processed food is. So I just made a change. I went and I detoxed in Venezuela, and they took my blood and they made a vaccine for me,
Wow.
which I took for the next 6 months. No, I'm not. No, the next 3 months. And at the end of the first month, I had to do blood work every month. The end of the month, my blood work was perfect, including the cancer markers, and it just kept improving after that. And that's my story. And still friends with Stacy. Actually went to Texas recently to spend time with her. We always say we're sisters, and changed my life. Started CrossFit. Um, Went down to a size 8 from a size 24. And just I live in it now. Coming back to Florida, Disney helped. I found that when I went to Disney, it was happy and so positive, and it really helped with my cancer survival and my journey and my recovery. And I think having a positive mindset really helps, and not just saying it, but actually living it. So, my advice to anyone that's listening is just do something you really love. Do something you love. Stop stressing about money. Money will always come. I stopped stressing about the bills. I stopped stressing about a lot of things. And my life just kind of fit in together. I sent out to the universe and to God that I want to have people that are genuine in my life. And that's what started happening. And everyone was really positive. No one saw me as a victim. No one felt sorry for me. And I didn't need that. I didn't need people to be, oh, poor you. I needed people to be empowering as well. And I live my life like that. So anytime I'm having a challenge, I have to sit down and take a step back and look at what I've accomplished. And things don't seem that dire anymore. That's how I look at life. And I've been really grateful. I have to thank cancer for changing my life, changing my mindset, making me a healthier person, making me exercise, making me very aware of, living in the now, but not being silly about it. Not, YOLO. It's not a situation like, oh, I'm going to spend all my money and go, to France, which I've actually been to. But just kind of enjoying the now, enjoying the taste of food. Of course, I gave up sugars, because it was terrible for me. And I know that for a fact because recently I had sugar and like I had so much inflammation I couldn't walk properly. So I know that's not good for me. Listening, taking a step back and listening to your body because your body tells you. It tells you, it gives you signs. And you have to be intuitive enough to read it and understand your body and love yourself. I had to love myself. I was hard on myself and I had to learn to love me with all my flaws. So I've been talking a lot. So that's my story.
Well, this hour is about you. It's about you. So tell me, you have referenced having a positive attitude a couple of times. So
Yes.
does that mean that your attitude was neutral before, or was it wavy, in and out of positive and not, or were you kind of in a bad attitude?
Okay, I'm going to be very honest with myself and with you because I think that's the best way to approach this. I used to speak a lot about positivity, but I didn't live it.
Mm.
So, you always look at those little when you're on social media, you see it all the time, the memes that tell you, be blessed and be positive. But what does that really mean? So it means therefore that when you're looking at even when you're approaching a show, I used to be like really upset to have to do certain things. But that's being negative. So what cancer, and it seems really strange to say, but it's the truth. What cancer really did, yes, it also my hair's grown. um what cancer did is it forced me to look at everything and see the positives in everything. So okay, I'm doing this job, which also helped with exercising. So exercising didn't become a chore, it became something to look forward to because it forced me to be in the now and to understand the pain that I'm going through and to know that in a few minutes I wouldn't have to deal with this anymore. And that's how I tend to approach a lot of things now. So even when I have to do something that I really don't want to do, like a newsletter, ugh, I have to stop myself and say, no, what are the positives? I'm going to do an exceptionally great newsletter. The client's going to be happy and it's going to be over. So I think that's what happens. So a lot of people say, oh, yeah, I'm being positive, but you're not really being positive. So I have to be honest with myself. So even looking at myself in the mirror, I used to loathe what I saw, and I had to learn to love all my flaws. And that I had to unlearn a lot of the brainwashing that took place, from what you see, what you're fed, and to really stop and say, you know what, I love my skin, I love my stretch marks, I love me, and having to come to terms with that is incredible. How when you change how you feel about yourself, people are attracted to you, you know? And that's how I'm able to find the right people in my life. That's how our marriage has been able to stand the test of time. Um, because when you think cancer, you start to blame, you get angry, you start to blame everyone and everything. You ask the question, why me? Why am I so unlucky? And then you have to unlearn that and say, no, I'm fortunate to have found this because I could have been going hunky dory and then realize I was stage 4 too late. So that helped me to have that kind of frank discussion with myself. I had to be really candid with myself and stop my nonsense. I had to stop it. I had to wake up and grow up. I had to grow up. I couldn't blame
Wake
anyone.
up and grow up.
Yeah, I had
Wow.
to. I had to. And that's the approach that I take now. Um, Even when I'm having a crappy day, I'm like, okay, I'm having a crappy day. Okay, this too will pass. What are my learnings from this? I have to stay in that. But it also has taught me that people that I consider what is called energy vampires, people who just suck, I've learned to say no and disassociate. I've had to be hard
Mm.
that way. So when you make a journey like this, you also have to be prepared to release some possessions, release people, release experiences, release a lot of things in order for you to grow. And that's what I had to do.
Wow. And you talked about the sugar
Oh, yeah.
and how recognizing what it does to your body, because it's one thing to be on a eating path, And because you've been on this path, you have surpassed the point where it was used to be good and now it's not anymore. So now the not anymore is constant. And so you believe it's the norm. But when you can stop eating, and I'm going to say the sugar, and because sugar is in so many things that a lot of times we don't even know there's sugar in it.
Yeah,
But when you stop eating it and you're like, hey, I feel better, all because what? You're aware of yourself.
absolutely. When I had to detox from sugar. I had to
Detox?
I had to detox from sugar. I was addicted. I have to be real with myself. I am a food addict. I know this about myself. I know I have no middle ground. So if I'm doing something, I'm doing it hard or I'm not doing it at all. And that's something that I'm working on within myself. So as my husband says, it could be extra, and he's right. I could be extra. My friends laugh and they're like, "You're so extra," but it's true. Am I really passionate? I'm not. So I'm working on myself. But sugar was something that I recognized that I needed to have something sweet after every meal, or it was a comfort for me. Sugar was so many things for me, and it was me just kind of escaping the fact that I needed to deal with me and deal with a lot of things that I just kept sweeping under the carpet. So I had to remove the carpet and take a hard look at all the
Mm.
dust, and I had to clean it. But coming back to sugar, I decided when I looked at myself in the mirror before I got my cancer diagnosis and I wanted to change who I was, I went on the South Beach diet. And the first thing that you do is you detox from sugar, basically, because you change your whole way of eating. And I was getting headaches, I was irritable, I was cold sweating. And I sat in the dark one night and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm addicted to sugar. That's what sugar was doing. Detoxing from sugar did that to me physically. When you sit, I don't know if you ever saw this movie called Train Spotting. It's about a guy that has this journey with heroin and he tries to detox from it and he gets cold sweats and he hallucinates and that kind of thing. I was cold sweating and that's from sugar. And when I started doing some research, they say it's more it's it's more addictive than cocaine. It's really bad. And then I started looking at labels, and your ketchup has sugar in it. Everything has sugar in it. So what did that force me to do? I started cooking at home. I started getting organic stuff. I started looking at labels. Anything that had dye number, dye AC, any dye. I just did not bother. Red, you know, 40. All those things we just decided not to use. We decided to switch out from Teflon. We went to glass and stainless steel utensils. We did a whole sweep in the house. We stopped using the microwave, the studies. So we don't use our microwave at home. We use an air fryer. I cook. And I started, doing things to appease my son because he's a foodie. So he likes ethnic type food. So I learned how to cook Ethiopian. I learned how to do Greek. I learned how to do a lot of things, and I just started substituting sugar for monk fruit, baking at
Monk
home.
fruit, what's that?
Monk fruit is an all-natural sugar substitute that tastes exactly like sugar. It's not. It doesn't have a strange aftertaste like stevia or the other NutraSweet does, and there's been no evidence that shows any link to cancer, and it's 1 to 1. So I started substituting, and 0 calories as well. So 0 carbs, 0 calories. So I started substituting it and having them try it, and they were like, "Oh, this is delicious." I'm like, "Well, it's all monk fruit." So, so we started eating healthier, and everyone. My husband lost weight. My son started to trim down. We decided to become active, but not substitute. A lot of people think that when you change your lifestyle, you're going to substitute taste for health. So
Mm.
I started becoming what I call like a healthy keto chef, so to speak. So I like the keto lifestyle simply because I really don't like breads and so on anymore. Because even now, when I go back and I decide, okay, let me just have a cheat day, and I have a burger from someone, I taste the sugar in the bun.
Mm.
The thing is, when you come off of sugar, you taste it in everything else. So onions are now sweet for me. Tomatoes are sweet for me. It's strange, but it is what it is. So therefore, things like cakes and candies are like ridiculously sweet. It like burns my throat, so I can't have it
Mm.
anymore. Nor should I be having it because it's terrible for you. But that's what happened. So they now look forward to red curry Thai, which I did yesterday actually for them. And non-GMO basmati rice or jasmine rice. And that's what we do. I've learned to fall in love. I say hate cooking, and I learned to fall in love with spending time in the kitchen, listening to music, and just giving love. And it comes out in your food, and they seem to be happy. And my husband also cooks, which is great because sometimes I just don't feel like doing it. So we share it, and we are very conscious of what we put into our mouths now, and that I think helps as well in terms of your maintenance because again, a lot of people forget it after for some people, ring that bell and you're cancer free. They think, okay, well, it's over now, I can revert. No, it's a lifestyle change. You have to be in the present and know that, I need to be doing this for my body. I have to love me. So I've had conversations with myself. Should I pick up that next chocolate cake or do I love myself? I've had to have those conversations with me because, you always have a tendency to revert when you feel good. You forget about what you go through. So it's not that I want to be reminded of it, but at the same time, I want to ensure that I live to see my son grow, get married. I want to see these things. I want to be there for him. So its purpose is mindful eating and living with purpose.
Exactly. Wow. That's really good. And to have your family agree with you or ease into it with you, whether they completely understand or not, to be in agreement and have a household that says, hey, I'm with you. And in fact, I even like this stuff, because I was just introduced to the keto diet recently.
Okay.
Um, I went to spend a couple weeks with my mom, and she was doing it, and I knew what she was doing before I got there, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know, but I'm willing. I am willing, especially if somebody cooks it for me."
Oh yeah, that's always
And
the best. And they can cook.
and so she actually found these really easy keto dishes, and they were absolutely delicious. In fact, one was I think it was the gumbo
Yeah.
that she made. And I said, I want this tomorrow. Like I was already planning. How can I eat this slowly, so that it'll last? And then I want it tomorrow. I already know. She made a tuna that
Hmm.
had cream cheese in it. You would never imagine. Oh man, I actually have the ingredients in my kitchen right now so that I can try to make it myself. Because it too was easy and had a lot of flavor. I actually, for those that know me, I don't really cook, but I made a quiche yesterday,
Mm,
and I deliberately did not put it in a pie crust.
yes. Yeah.
I had fresh spinach. I had mushrooms, some
Hmm.
bacon, a little bit of cheese, and the eggs.
That's a
And
favorite here for breakfast.
and I just poured it in a glass dish
Yes. Yes.
and baked it. You could see it bake, and you could keep it from burning. And
And that's it. That's what we had to do. When I was in Mexico, they actually gave me recipes in terms of, eating healthy, looking at your sugars. And I just felt like keto was a natural fit for me, simply because, I try not to use too much fruit because of the fructose in it. Um, but I like blueberries, which is also very good for, keeping cancer at bay.
Mhm.
So it kind of works itself out. And then I realized, you know what? I love carbs. I used to laugh and say, I love carbs. I used to sing, I love carbs. I mean, again, it's me being real with me. And we would joke about it, my husband and I would joke about it. But for me, if I don't have it, I'm okay. So I don't have bread unless I found recently a keto bread at Aldi's, which is not bad. But again, I like vegetables, so veggies work for me. So lots of cauliflower rice. You can easily do a fried rice with it. You can do so many things with it. You can do a
You can do a
shepherd's
fried rice
pie.
with the cauliflower
Oh
rice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done
Okay.
fried rice. Chinese, like Chinese style fried rice. I've done Trinidad Chinese fried rice, which is a little different. I've done so many. I've done a shepherd's pie with no
Mm,
carbs, just using
okay.
mashed cauliflower. I've done that. They loved it. They didn't. I did an entire Thanksgiving meal with not one carb, and they had a spread, and they loved it. They ate, and it was carb.
So you didn't
Well,
have macaroni and cheese.
no, no. But then again, I'm lucky. I'm not a pasta person, so
Okay.
and I'm very fortunate that my husband and my son they they're neither here nor there. Like they don't crave it, so they will never come and say, "Oh, I feel for this. Can you make it?" If they do, I will make it. It doesn't happen, but if it like sometimes my son will come and say, "I'm feeling for so." I can't remember, I can't whatever off the cuff.
Yeah.
And then I would make it. Like he likes sushi. So I would make sushi for him at home. But I would get him involved. So he'll boil the sushi rice at the right temperature. And so it becomes, a family thing because he enjoys being in the kitchen with me.
Okay.
Or someday he fell for curry, which is like a Japanese curry. So I did that for him. So I got him to mix and, he was like my sous chef. So it worked out. So it becomes, something for us to do. But yeah, so we don't really have pastas in the house. We rarely do. And if we have, it'll probably be rice noodles more than likely, because I do a lot of Asian dishes.
Okay.
You know, because my husband is, he has Asian heritage, so ever so often, he feels like inclined to go back to China. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. If he hears me, he'd probably roll his eyes. But so yeah, we tend to do a lot of Mediterranean and Asian and African dishes in the house. So yeah, so I don't feel for mac and cheese. We really I can't remember the last time we had a hot dog.
Mm.
Um Burgers we do in the air fryer, and so it's no grease or anything, and it tastes the same, and we dress it. We would probably put sauerkraut in it, which is healthier.
Mm.
We find innovative things: pickles, sauerkraut. There is sugar-free ketchup available at Walmart, so we use that, and it tastes the same way. And I would get keto buns, which are 2 grams of carbs, and but that's a one-off. It doesn't happen often.
Mhm.
So we've learned to enjoy life, and we have wings again in the air fryer. We would do it. It tastes the same way without
I
having.
love wings in the air fryer. Oh,
Exactly. So, and then of course there's keto flour if you wanted to get breaded wings. So I've
oh
done, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But, but we just put the sauces in and we go in, and that's what they have. So actually, we have, because I'll have wings too. But yeah, so it's just minor changes. What the only challenge now is that if we decide to dine out, my son becomes very kind of almost snotty. He's like, "Mom, you make this better." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe I make it better." Okay. But yeah, so that was our change, and we realized, my husband and I, we used to spend a lot of time eating. When
Mm.
we're under stress, we eat. We met doing our masters together. That's how we met. And we used food as comfort. So we would have milkshakes, and I mean, put chocolate wafers in the milkshakes. It was ridiculous. So, so we also had to unlearn the fact that we bonded over food. And we were like, okay, well, what do we do now? Because all we did is, we happy we eat. We have to celebrate, we eat. We're sad, we eat. We're bored, we eat. You know, we want to spend time together, we eat. So we had to unlearn that. So we got bikes, we went out, we started doing other things outside of eating. So Disney came in handy, so we would walk for hours because we both love Disney. And I felt so happy, you know. It's about putting yourself in a space also, in a place. Even when you're at home, music helps. Playing music, just being in it and just going along with the melody, it raises it raises your all your levels. You're happy, and when you're happy, all your cells react. That's something I had to learn too. You know, your cells are product of how you treat them.
Yes.
So when you're upset or you're holding on to anger or you're stressed, your cells react to it. But when you're happy, your cells are happy. When you nourish it, when you give it water, your cells thank you for it. And that's about coming back to loving yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to love yourself. When I started loving myself, my hair started to grow. You know, everything just kind of fell into place.
Amen. So
Yeah,
let's just talk about your husband really quick before
of
for
course.
a moment and his amazing support. You
Yeah,
know, he said, because I know a plane ticket anywhere at the last minute is over the top. But that wasn't even an issue for him. He's like, nope, I'm coming to get you. You go have that test. I'm coming to get you. I'm bringing you home, and we're gonna have this taken care of.
yeah.
So that was amazing.
He has been the kind of support that I have had with him. I'm very, very fortunate to have him in my life. He was with me throughout the diagnosis. Well, I mean, on the phone. When I came with the alternative options, it was, I think, about 30,000. And he's like, go ahead, get it. Not a problem. I'll sort it out. You be well. The only thing is that, I mean, he felt kind of bad that he couldn't come because he was working. So that's why I said, you know what, I'd go on my own. My son wanted to come with me, and I was like, no, simply because I didn't want him to see me at my worst, and I didn't think a child should have to go through seeing your mom suffering, because there were some days I really did not, I mean, it was awful, you know, and painful, you know. I didn't want him to see me like that. But he was upset that he wasn't there for me at the same time, but I didn't want to I mean, he does his school online. He's a 4.0 GPA student. I didn't want him to be affected, you know. I don't want him in his adult life to have, you know, his experiences shaped around trauma like that. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking. So, but my husband has always, you know, been supportive, even with the injections when I had to come and do them. He was always there, you know, if you needed help. When I came back from Venezuela, you know, the house was clean, the house, you know, he was like, you know what, you just lie, you'll be okay, you know. And then I realized that he was affected, you know, it was real. He didn't want to lose me. He's a little older than I am, and he said, you know, I wish sort of would be me going, not you. So it, I I owe him so much, and you know, I mean, we people, marriage is always a challenge. We've been married for over 20, almost 20 years actually, and you know, but these things really test your marriage. And he, not for one moment, thought of abandoning us. He never, it was just never in his vortex, ever, you know. And I know that, you know, he will literally clean me because he has done so before, you
Yes.
know. He should have been a doctor, I think. This calling.
Well, we truly want to say hats off to your husband, because not all men can handle that.
No.
They don't know what to, and not even just men, but people, caregivers, don't always know what to do. But what they don't realize is this is the first time we've gone through it as well. So we don't always know what to do. So folks need to just talk to each other and encourage each other, and be open to trying this and trying that, whatever is in your wheelhouse to be able to get through the journey together.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. You know,
Yes.
and I'm so happy to, have this forum to share my story as well. A lot of people didn't know. That's another thing. I didn't tell a lot of people that I had cancer and I was going through treatment because I didn't want to shift the focus on my healing to people feeling sorry for me. I didn't want that energy.
Yeah.
That pity party I didn't want to be a part of. So a lot of people only after like a few years I was able to share it and people were shocked. And I'm like, yeah, well, it is what it is. But I think, anyone getting a diagnosis like that, knowing um, that, your mindset has a lot to do with how you're going to choose your battle.
Choose.
Yeah, choose to live. You have to choose to live. And I was fortunate to have Ryan there to say, it's an easy one. And that helped me choose. I had to choose. Because if I didn't choose, I would probably not be here right now. Because I have also seen with my grandmother, her getting her diagnosis. She was fine all the time. She got a diagnosis and she chose to die. And in the space of a few months, less than a few months, like a month and a half, she was gone. And I saw her suffer, and it didn't have to be like that. People, when they hear cancer now with the technology that we have and all the new discoveries, it's not a death sentence.
Yes.
There are lots of survivors like us.
Like us. And it's amazing that you probably don't even know, but the theme to our show is choose life.
Oh, yeah.
So as we wrap this segment up of the testimony of Anika, I say to everyone, choose life.